Welcome to Chapter 9 of Deadly Manners. We will begin our program after this quick word from our sponsors.
MeUndies are the softest, most comfortable underwear you'll ever wear, period. And they don't just make underwear, they also make these crazy soft lounge pants. Every pair of MeUndies is sustainably sourced from micromodal, and that's 3 times softer than cotton. And if you're used to buying boring underwear, MeUndies is going to change you down there. You have to feel for yourself why MeUndies has sold over 5 million pairs to date. If you don't love your first pair of MeUndies, then they're free. Just keep them. For a limited time, get 20% off your first pair, plus free shipping at MeUndies.com/deadly. That's MeUndies.com/deadly.
Rue, let's talk about Audible.
You have a book on Audible, don't you?
I do.
Well, and it's in addition to about 150,000 other titles. But The Diva Rules, your book, is there, and you read it yourself.
I did read it myself. I sat in that little booth, and I narrated the whole thing. And you start to go insane when you narrate.
Really?
So when you hear it back, it's like, oh, I like this. I don't sound crazy.
You know, I'm a big fan of audiobooks.
Same.
And Audible.com has a great offer for people who love audiobooks.
Yep, you guys can get one free audiobook and a 30-day trial from Audible just by going to audible.com/deadly. That's a free audiobook and a free 30-day trial, audible.com/deadly.
Roger's body hit the ground, immobilized on the spot.
Roger!
Holy crap!
William immediately ran to the bottom of the staircase, gently turning him over. Not only was Mr. Roger Clark no longer, but jammed squarely into his mouth was the bottle, shoved so far into his maw that his jawbone had snapped at some point during its entry.
Goodness.
Dear Lord, how ghastly.
Nancy, oh God, I'm so sorry.
Nancy looked at the ground below where her now former husband's body lay. For a moment, she was in pure shock, watching the blood slowly leak from his brains and spill out onto the floor. But then, the longer she looked, the more the corners of her mouth began to upturn. Everyone looked at one another with concern.
Nancy?
Uh-oh. Nancy, are you all right?
Oh dear me. I'm sorry. I know it's not all that funny, but, well, it's just so fitting, isn't it? That a liquor bottle would somehow be the thing that ended up killing him in the end.
You think he would have actually survived that fall?
I don't know, maybe.
He did fall back pretty forcefully, almost as if someone...
What? Pushed him? Is that what you're going to accuse me of next?
To everyone's surprise, however, Olivia merely offered a shrug.
Not necessarily you. In fact, most of us had a reason to.
Olivia, that's a terrible thing to insinuate.
Well, he was a terrible man who did terrible things. Good riddance, I say.
Don't be so insensitive. The man's been dead barely a minute, and his wife is standing right here next to us.
Ex-wife. And it's really all right, William. Who knows if Roger would have ever let me go? So whether someone here pushed him or if he truly fell by accident, it matters not. He's gone. And I'm free. I'm finally free!
Nancy laughed herself all the way back to the party room, leaving the Billings family, their butler, and the maid looming over Roger's corpse. Veronica shared a look with the maid, who looked down at the mess before her.
I should clean this up before the guests see.
Just the blood. I'll take care of the body.
Oh, what will you do with it?
I suppose I can just put it in the refrigerator with the others.
How grim.
Here, let me help.
William bent down to help the butler lift his former friend, but suddenly paused.
What was it that Roger was going to tell me?
Oh, that? Who knows?
You seem to.
Veronica's eyes went wide as she stared blankly at her husband, her mouth struggling to form the right words as his request burrowed deep inside her brain like a parasitic worm. As a young, blossoming debutante, she had always been told that men should have both the first and last word. A woman's role was to support, to uplift, to take care. And although she had a knack for such behavior, she couldn't help but feel a consistent boredom with what was expected. Why should she always have to listen to what a man says and never have an opinion of her own? She found their words tedious and boring, with their constant talk of booze and cars and cigars. Actually, the only topic of theirs she was ever interested in was when it pertained to women. She would listen to them describe their ideal girl, what they wanted, what they dreamed about. Veronica found that most of the time, their dreams lined up rather similarly to hers. Perhaps, she thought, her inappropriate musings would subside after a time, if she could just meet the right man. After all, that is what her mother ingrained in her, that all she ever needed in life was the right man. When that man turned out to be middle-class factory worker William Billings, her parents were disappointed, to say the least. But William had eventually won them over, and Veronica too, for a time. It wasn't until he brought home his dead boss's daughter, Beatrice, a young, beautiful waif who sparked the very neurons of her soul, that she realized it wasn't about which man was right. In fact, it wasn't about men at all. And although she did love William in a particular way, she knew it wasn't the way a husband assumes of his wife. So, she played her part and made sure William got what he deserved, what he expected as her husband. Then, after years of companionship, Veronica came to see that despite her abundant social circles, it was William who was her one true friend, and it soon became her biggest fear that he would soon find out the truth, that she would destroy him beyond repair. She would do anything to keep that from happening, even if it meant spending the rest of her life in a lie.
William, it was nothing. Roger, he couldn't even stand up straight. He didn't know what he was saying.
Indeed. I believe Mr. Clark consumed at least half of our liquor stock during the course of the night, a feat that would have knocked a less determined fool to his knees.
Instead, it just knocked this one down the stairs.
I don't know. He seemed quite adamant.
A drunk always is for nonsense.
Veronica, you forget that I've known you for nearly half your life. What aren't you telling me?
Not to be crass, but can't we all just move on from this whole debacle?
Your insistence on withholding whatever information he had only makes me all the more curious.
All I'm saying is that the center of our misery is finally gone. And if we have nary a minute to mourn the others, we shouldn't give another second to him. In fact, I would be willing to bet that the killings all but come to an end now that Mr. Clark has departed.
I'll take that bet.
My friends are dead in my house, and the person I trusted most apparently is keeping secrets from me. Next thing you'll tell me is that Nixon has taken over the presidency.
For the last time, there is no secret.
Veronica, enough.
Whoa.
What?
I've just never heard her call you by your first name before.
The Billings turned in shock to see their usually obedient maid standing there, fists clenched, tears welling up in her eyes.
Apologies, madam, but I cannot keep up the charade any longer. Please, if I may. Mr. Billings, you're right. There is a secret.
Veronica desperately searched the maid's face for even a hint of what was to come.
Go ahead, then. What is it?
It was about me, and I'm afraid it's one that could possibly damage both you and Mrs. Billings' reputation, having someone like me in your employ.
Now, what sort of secret could there be about you? Why, you're not stealing from us, are you?
No, of course not. I would never.
Are you a fugitive from the law?
No, nothing like that.
All right, then. Out with it.
It's just, well...
She looked down at her feet, the anxiety biting at her joints.
You can trust me. This shouldn't be your burden alone to bear.
It's a bit awkward to admit, but as it turns out, I am the sort of who doesn't prefer the company of men. I've tried, truly, but
Ah, I see.
I'm sorry if that in any way offends you or causes trouble for you.
Now, don't be ridiculous, and do not apologize. We cannot and should not ever apologize for love. The heart was not meant to fit in a box, but to beat freely within our bodies. Why, if we all followed convention, my own wife wouldn't have looked twice in my direction.
Thank you, Mr. Billings. I can't tell you how wonderful it feels to finally admit it. It's so liberating.
A flicker of relief settled over Veronica's face. Or maybe it was envy.
So that's it?
What else is there? I've always been proud of our diverse little family, and she's no exception.
Well, yes, I suppose that's a valid point.
It doesn't bother you, sweetheart, does it?
Heavens, no, of course not. I have, after all, known for a while.
Yes, you have.
Certainly you could understand why I couldn't tell you, William dear.
I do, and I'm sorry for prying so. But I'm glad that all our skeletons are out of the closet.
Olivia nudged Roger's corpse with her foot.
Then perhaps it's time we put this one in.
Olivia!
Although crude, our Olivia does have a point. We should get him out of here before the other guests see.
William and the butler bent down, each taking an end of Roger. With a grunt, they lifted him into the air, making their way to the kitchen.
Well then, now that that's settled, I guess we should return to our little soiree, no?
Or what's left of it.
Veronica, Olivia, and the maid headed back into the party, where the guests were seemingly having the time of their lives. They took turns playing a medley of show tunes on the piano. Others, with Nancy at the helm, had restarted a drunken game of charades. James Egley was cornered by a lush Barbara DuPont, who aggressively pulled at his shirt buttons.
Come on, Jamesy, darling. For old time's sake.
Oh, I don't know.
Don't tell me you don't want to. With me.
Of course I do. It's just that I'm not entirely sure I can give a suitable performance at the moment.
I used to give Gloria Vanderbilt's inbred fourth cousin a little pants party just by looking at him from across the room. And Lord knows that boy was practically impotent.
Veronica scanned the room, pleasantly taking in the sight. Sure, her guests had dwindled in number, but the ones who remained seemed unfazed by the entire ordeal. Olivia frowned as she picked up an empty champagne bottle.
Do we have any of this left? I could really use a glass.
Should be a bottle hiding beneath the ice in that bucket over there if Barbara hasn't injected the entire thing into her veins yet.
As Olivia walked away, Veronica turned to Beatrice, a mixture of both anger and gratitude floating between them.
I can't believe you told William.
I knew you weren't going to. Someone had to say something.
So that's what you decided on? You couldn't have made something else up?
I told you before that I would do anything for you. I did this for you.
You know how people see your kind?
My kind.
It's just too taboo. What if he had reacted poorly? What then? You would have been sent away.
Then you could have come with me. It would have been the perfect opportunity for us to finally run away together. Veronica, don't you see? Now the only obstacle left is you. This is all on your terms.
What about my house, my daughter? I'm just supposed to leave them all behind?
Olivia is a grown woman now. And William said it himself. The heart was meant to beat freely. Surely he would understand if you would just tell him.
It's different, Beatrice. As accepting as my husband is, he would never be okay with his own wife running off with another person. It wouldn't be fair for me to ask him to be okay with that.
But it's fair for you to keep pretending. To keep me here, flaunting your fake happiness in front of my face, watching you kiss and love one another in your adoring public.
I made a commitment.
You made a mistake.
Without William, I wouldn't have even met you.
And here I was thinking that it was fate that brought us together. How could I have been so stupid?
She started to walk away, but Veronica grabbed her wrist. Beatrice quickly ripped it from her grasp.
Sorry, Mrs. Billings, but do excuse me. I'm nothing more than a maid, and I must return to my duties.
Beatrice, please. You know that isn't true.
No, I don't.
Meanwhile, in the kitchen, William and the butler were gently arranging the pile of bodies that had accumulated throughout the night. After dropping off Roger, they had decided to retrieve Joseph Feinstein's corpse from the billiards room so he may lay with his wife, Esther. Next to them were the chef, the fortune teller, the magician, and Leslie Birch.
Quite a collection we've mustered, isn't it?
Indeed. Such a shame.
I tried not to let my curiosity get the best of me in front of the missus, but I can't help but wonder who could be behind all of this.
There aren't many options left to choose from.
2 of which include your wife and daughter. But that's not. You can't possibly think.
I could, but I won't.
Perhaps it's like you said, that there is a vagrant loose in the house.
Never in my life did I think I would hope for something like that. But that wouldn't explain Roger's little tumble.
I think the answer to that is quite obvious.
What? Are you saying it was Nancy?
That would be my guess. She was simply capitalizing on a situation that had so easily presented itself.
Roger was a friend, but I can't say that I blame her. I mean, for God's sake, the man struck her in a room full of people. There's no doubt in my mind what he would have done to her in private.
You think that was truly her motivation? She did threaten him with a knife.
Well, whatever the case, when the police come, he'll be lumped in with the rest of the victims, and no one will ever think twice.
I didn't peg her as the clever type.
Neither did Roger. Now, come on. Let's do a clean sweep, then head back to the party before Mrs. Billings starts to worry.
Upstairs, Beatrice sat on her bed in front of an empty suitcase. She knew there was no way this was going to end well for her. She'd read enough books where a man promises to leave his wife for his mistress only to find that it was never to be so. She wasn't an idiot. She was in love, but perhaps those weren't so different. So, with fierce resolve, Beatrice headed to her closet, grabbed her clothes, and began to pack. As she hastily stowed away her belongings, she couldn't help but feel a looming presence inching its way in from the doorway behind her. However, she suddenly felt hands begin to squeeze around her neck. The fingers pressed hard into her bones, so strong and quick she didn't have time to scream. Beatrice gasped, eyes bloodshot as she turned toward her attacker, whose grasp was unrelenting.
No. But why?
The last breath was forcefully squeezed from Beatrice's mouth, and her body dropped to the ground with an unceremonious thud. Much later, the energy of the party downstairs had started to fade. The long night of drinking and murder had finally begun to take its toll. Hours had passed, and many of the guests were now asleep on the couches. James Egley and Barbara DuPont's lips still locked together as they slumbered, and Veronica seemed pleased as she stared out the window at the sunrise. The snowstorm had finally ceased, and the warmth of the sun was already transforming the frozen flakes into drops. She stroked Olivia's face, who was resting in the chaise lounge next to her. William slung an arm around his wife's waist, smiling at their sleeping daughter.
She's so beautiful, isn't she?
Yes, she really is. I just wish more people had a chance to see it.
Someday, my love. Someday this world will be different.
Pardon.
Damn it, George!
Apologies, but it appears the phones are back in working order.
All right, then I'll phone the police.
No need, sir. I've already taken it upon myself.
Oh, wonderful.
I suppose we ought to get the cleanup in order. Where is Beatrice?
Not sure, madam. Haven't seen her since she headed up to her room in a bit of a hurry a few hours ago.
That's strange. You don't think she was upset about our conversation earlier, do you?
I'm sure it's nothing. She's always been the dramatic sort.
I've never thought so.
Well, you don't know her like I do.
No, I suppose not.
Anyway, I should go check on her. Make sure she knows we can start cleaning up this whole mess.
Sounds good to me.
Veronica had only been gone a few minutes before the sound of a blood-curdling scream sent shockwaves throughout the home, waking up every single person and startling them near death.
Veronica!
Mama?
She's upstairs!
William, Olivia, the butler, and all the guests ran out into the hallway and up the stairs to Beatrice's room. There, they found Veronica kneeling on the ground, the lifeless body of their maid in her arms. She cradled her head as she sobbed into her chest.
Oh, Beatrice. Dear, sweet Beatrice. Poor young, beautiful Beatrice. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
Oh no.
An utter travesty.
William approached Veronica, attempting to place a comforting hand on her shoulder, but was immediately rebuffed.
Get away from me. Don't you see? It's over. It's all over.
What are you talking about?
The murderer is still alive, still here, in this house. They won't stop. They're never going to stop until we're all dead.
Madam, as soon as the road's clear, the police are going to come, and we're all going to be okay.
We won't make it until then. I just know it. What's the point of even trying? This was supposed to be my night. I was supposed to have my comeback.
Don't worry, doll. Not everyone is cut out for this sort of life.
Veronica sprung up from the floor and practically glided over to Barbara, where her palm landed firmly on her face with a slap.
Oh! Shut up, Barbara. Just shut the hell up. Nothing matters anymore. Nothing.
Just calm down, Veronica.
Calm down? Calm down? How could you even ask me to do a thing like that? Beatrice is dead. William, our maid, our caretaker, the one who's kept us clean all these years, who's taken care of us when we were ill. For God's sake, she practically raised Olivia with me. We promised her father we would always keep her safe, and she's dead. What kind of people are we? Who are we that we let something like this happen in our very own home? This is all my fault. I'm so stupid.
Mama, please.
I should have listened to you, Olivia. We should have just sat in a room with a bunch of candles and waited until morning. But no, I had to try and prove myself. Prove my worth. And for what? A bunch of strangers? A room full of people who could care less about me? Who wouldn't show even an ounce of appreciation for everything I did. I was trying to do for them tonight. What is wrong with me?
Veronica, this wasn't your fault. You have to know that.
Your husband is dead, Nancy. The Feinsteins are dead. My chef is dead. The magician is dead. The fortune teller is dead. Dead, 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 dead! It's only a matter of time before we all find the same fate.
And you know what? I think I'm actually looking forward to it.
You're talking nonsense.
No, William, I'm making all the sense.
With that, Veronica rushed past her guests and ran back down the stairs. Veronica stormed into the party room and began her environmental assault. She picked up the various glasses around the room and began smashing them on the floor.
It's all meaningless.
She flipped over tables, smashed plates, and tore the curtains down. When her husband and the rest caught up to Veronica, she was dirtied with remnants from the party and specks of her own blood.
Have a big party, they told me. Everyone will love you if you throw a big party. Can't be a good wife without throwing a successful party. Can't be invited to all the most important social circles if you don't impress people at your parties.
She's a woman possessed.
Veronica, you're scaring us all.
Good! You should be scared. You should all be terrified. You're all going to die. So let me ask, which one of you is it, Which one of you is doing this?
I don't know, not me.
No, there's only a few people it could actually be. Was it you, Nancy? Did you set this whole thing up because you were planning on offing your husband this whole time?
What a ridiculous accusation!
Or maybe it was you, George. Were you upset about your station in life and decided to take it out on those you deemed oppressive?
Mrs. Billings, I assure you, I have nothing but love for this family.
Perhaps it was you, Olivia. You hate me. You've always hated me. What better way to hurt me than attacking the things that bring me the greatest joy?
Do you really think I would do something like that?
How do we know it wasn't you, Veronica?
Ha! Excuse me?
Well, you've had a fine time throwing accusations around, but not once has anyone ever considered you.
If I were the one doing all of this, why would I make such a stink about it? Why would I be near losing my mind at this very moment?
Could be all part of your act. Who knows?
Please, Barbara. If I were the murderer, I would have taken care of you first, you miserable bitch!
Well, I never.
And what about you, James? Are you mad that all those people don't give a damn about your cheesy, over-the-top performances? Are you mad that the public doesn't still adore you?
Over the top?
That's enough, Veronica. You've completely popped your top. This has been a rather stressful evening for everyone, and I think it would be best if you would just have a little lie down.
Fine. Fine.
Veronica fled to her master suite, where she threw herself on the bed and began to sob quietly. She knew she had lost it, but Beatrice was the one who kept her sane. She was the love of her life, and she could have been with her if she hadn't been such a coward. Perhaps they would have gone to a farm somewhere, raised a few animals. Olivia would come to visit every so often, and maybe William and a new love would come by for some fresh milk and eggs, congratulating them on their happiness. William would have a child of his own, one that Veronica was never able to provide them. They'd talk and laugh about days of past, wondering why it all took them so long to realize that their hearts could have been so much more free. They would watch the sunset over the wheat fields, and Veronica and Beatrice would sit on a wooden porch swing, holding hands as the last heat from the day would dissipate into the night. This was the fantasy that she had. This was the fantasy that would never come true. Instead, she chose to be trapped in a loveless house, surrounded by death and destruction. It didn't matter what anyone said. It was Veronica's fault, and that was the last thought Veronica had before a familiar pair of hands found their way around her neck.
Thank you for listening. We will have a preview of Chapter 10 after this quick word from our sponsors.
MeUndies are the softest, most comfortable underwear you'll ever wear, period. For a limited time, get 20% off your first pair, plus free shipping at MeUndies.com/deadly. That's MeUndies.com/deadly.
This episode is brought to you by our friends at Audible. You can get one free audiobook and a 30-day trial from Audible just by going to audible.com/deadly. That's audible.com/deadly.
It was you this whole time?
Please, I beg you, enough!
But why?
Madam, what is the meaning of all of this?
Help! Help! Somebody help!
Son of a bitch!
Chapter 10, the Season 1 finale of Deadly Manners, is available this afternoon, ad-free and in lossless sound quality, on Shudder and Sundance Now. It'll be available on your podcast app on November 28th. It features cameos from Andrew W.K., Jamie Josta, Nicole Goodnight from No Sleep, Atticus Jackson from No Sleep, John Grills, and Terry Miles, the creator of Black Tapes, Rabbits, and Tanis. Hope you enjoy it, and I'll catch you then.